Hello again.
Hi.
It's Friday, so it's time for Science Sip.
Today it's a sip of
Cheers.
tea.
Yes, today we have tea again because we have a small kid, and apparently if you have a small kid right now, you have never-ending colds. So, tea today.
For all you parents out there who have sick kids and you're sick yourself, this one's for you.
Cheers. Good tea. Okay, Dimos, do you want to start us off this week with your science topic?
Oh yeah. So I decided to. I'm a big fan of DNA and health. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some research on fruit flies.
Fruit flies.
Yes, apparently
Drosophila.
Drosophila. If you make them have a high sugar diet early in
Fruit
life.
flies, isn't that the definition of a high sugar diet?
Exactly. Yes. However, what's interesting is that there is really interesting to do a lot of DNA studies with fruit flies, and there is a transcription factor called DFOXO or DFOXO, which you've probably heard of, my lovely wife, which is involved in glucose metabolism.
Okay.
Now, what's interesting is that it's known that this can affect longevity because it doesn't work as you get later in age. So there is some interesting experiments done to increase the level of it in female fruit flies during the first 3 weeks of it in the fly's adulthood. And what they found was the early life experience caused changes to chromatin, which is a mix of DNA and proteins, as the chromatin. Thank you. As the packaging of DNA. This resulted in the genes being expressed differently later in life, and that you could essentially affect the normal aging process by how this chromatin was expressed. And so it was very interesting because what it means is that if you want to affect people's later life, you affect their diet early in life. And that can actually, it doesn't change your DNA, but it changes how your DNA works or how your DNA is unpackaged.
If you're a fruit fly.
Yes. So
the big question with these animal studies is always, how does that actually translate into people's?
Yeah.
Because people's are not fruit flies.
Yeah. And that's my science sip.
I remember in high school, we had, in my AP bio class, we had an experiment, a fruit fly experiment, but my teacher didn't want to actually deal with all the fruit flies because, they're fruit flies.
Yeah.
So we had this program on the computer in the computer lab. Remember we had to go to the computer lab?
Oh, those are good old days, yeah.
And on the computer lab, and you put in the genetics, and you press enter, and it'd say, please wait while flies are mating. And then it would spit out your genetic results.
I remember that. That was so cool. Because it was a true simulation.
Shaking the table. It's not an earthquake. We had an earthquake earlier this week. Not an earthquake today. We're just bumping into the table.
Knees.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think there's all this research, because there's all this research on telomeres, which are the ends of your DNA, your genes, a while ago, and how, if you could, not have telomerase, or if you have telomerase, keep your telomere ends, from degrading, then you could have a longer life and all this stuff. But none of it's really translated to people very well.
Okay. Well, I still thought it was very interesting.
It's interesting.
Because I do care about health. I mean, I think you and I both try to exercise and even adjust our diets appropriately.
Hence the tea today.
Hence the tea, exactly. Chamomile.
I have saffron.
Saffron.
I was reading, I'm still reading that book on colors for our podcast, and I was reading about saffron tea, and real saffron tea gives you a little boost, a little energy kick.
Really?
Yes. But it's also red, and this one's not, so I don't think this is real saffron.
It's Greek saffron.
Yeah.
All
right, Mr. Slurpee over there. So, I was looking at the BBC website this week, and there's an article in the health section on Malawi starting its malaria vaccination campaign. So, this is huge when the malaria vaccine got approved. It's the first vaccine to be approved for a multicellular organism, right? So, a parasite, not like a bacteria or a virus. And malaria itself is really old, right? There's references to malaria in things like the Bible. And
the plague.
No, it's not the plague.
No.
The plague is different. The plague is a bacteria. Yersinia pestis. Malaria has always been malaria. It comes from
Okay.
mosquitoes. And it's a really complex organism. So malaria, you get bitten by, it has to be an anopheline mosquito. It's not any mosquito. It has to be specifically an anopheline mosquito. And the sporozoite phase enters your bloodstream and then goes and infects your liver cells. In the liver cells, the parasite goes through a maturation process and becomes merozoite. So it bursts your liver cells and these merozoites come out. And then they go on and infect your red blood cells. And depending on the Plasmodium, is the malaria parasite. Depending on the Plasmodium species, you can also get in your red blood cells, gametocytes. And then those gametocytes burst out of the red blood cells and get picked up by the mosquitoes, and it goes through the process of the mosquitoes, and you kind of do the whole infection thing over again.
Okay.
So because there's all these different stages of the malaria parasite, it's hard to know which one to target, and which one you target sort of depends on what you want your vaccine to do.
So you're targeting a stage in the life of the parasite.
Right, so like if you wanted to make a vaccine to get rid of the clinical symptoms of malaria, then you would make a merozoite specific. The stage that infects your red blood cells is the stage that causes the disease. And malaria can be deadly. So Malawi, the country we're talking about, in 2020, 2,500 infants died of malaria.
Okay.
And it's 80% of the malaria deaths worldwide are in infants.
Okay.
So the RTSS vaccine by GlaxoSmithKline is the one they're using, and it targets the sporozoite. So it targets the stage that enters your blood from the mosquito.
Okay.
And it is called an infection blocking vaccine. So hopefully your body will produce antibodies so that when you get a sporozoite, your body attacks it before it gets to your liver and starts the whole cycle.
Okay.
This vaccine itself is a protein vaccine made to resemble the, which one is it? The circumsporozoite protein on the surface of that stage of the parasite.
Circumsporozoite.
Sporozoite.
Sporozoite.
Or CSP. For Plasmodium falciparum, which is the most frequent the species that causes the most malaria and the most severe malaria.
That's a species of parasite.
Yes, there's 4 for
All
malaria.
right. Okay.
And there is also, the vaccine is also coupled with hepatitis B antigen. So what happens in the vaccine is that the hepatitis B antigens form this virus-like particle with the CSP antigen, the parasite antigen on the outside, so that when antigen...
So it's circumcised, just like it says, it's circum...
No, that has nothing to do with it. It's making a virus-like particle so that your body recognizes it as something foreign. If you just throw protein in your body, it'll degrade, it won't,
Okay.
So you want to make it look like a virus, so your body goes, hey, that's something that we should make a immune response to. And because you have the parasite protein there, it'll make it against the parasite protein.
Cool.
Yeah. And, so this vaccine was only found to be 30% protective in the trials, which doesn't sound like a lot, but for malaria is huge because they use it as part of a whole toolkit for malaria prevention, which includes insecticide-treated bed nets, indoor residual spraying, getting rid of standing water, sometimes even chemoprophylaxis, which is like if you or I were to go to a malaria endemic country, would take a pill every day to prevent getting malaria. And so they're going to be giving this countrywide to 5 to 17-month-olds starting soon, and it's really exciting because this is one of the first big country rollouts of this vaccine. There are other vaccines coming up the pipeline that look a little bit more effective, but for me, as somebody who works in infectious diseases and in vaccines, this is super exciting and really could have a huge impact on malaria mortality.
Pretty exciting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, how bad is malaria these days? Like is it getting worse? I've heard that it's coming into the U.S.
Well, there's always been a sort of basal level of malaria in the U.S., mostly from travelers.
Yeah.
We have anopheline mosquitoes in the U.S. We don't have enough transmission to have a sort of indigenous malaria.
Okay.
We used to. There used to be malaria in the U.S. There used to be malaria all over Europe, especially here in Greece.
Oh, wow.
DDT spraying is what got rid of most of it, and then DDT was banned, and was banned before all of the malaria could be gotten rid of, and so this is
bad timing.
Very bad timing. It was, DDT is kind of a hard thing. It definitely had ecological impacts, and that was mostly when it was used for agricultural spraying, like a lot of DDT.
Yeah, like it was crop dusted.
Yeah, so like things like indoor residual spraying, which we would use to get rid of malaria, it's not as impactful on either human or animal health, but it's still banned.
Now, as a kid, I remember my grandmother would get a can of DDT, screw on the puffer, and she would basically puff the walls.
Yeah.
She would puff the walls of our...
Yeah,
and that was how we slept.
Yeah,
we slept with the
that's
walls
indoor
treated.
residual spraying to treat the walls, and so if the mosquito lands on the walls, and
Yeah.
So anyway, it's exciting to have another thing in the malaria prevention toolkit. Like I said, it's a very impactful disease worldwide still, especially for infants. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this goes in a couple of years.
Yeah,
to
that's
see
great.
the impact.
Sounds good. Or we just bring back the DDT sprayer.
I think we could probably come up with better solutions at this point.
I hope so. All right.
Okay, have a good weekend, everybody.
Take care.
Cheers. Oh.